Hi. I know. Hey, Carol. Hi, Chandler. Hi, Shayla, Michelle. Come on in, guys. Welcome, welcome. Excited to be here with you. Hi, Christina. Hi. Hi, Blanca. Hi, Brooke. Come on in. Where is everybody today? It is a very rainy. I'm like praying to the computer gods that my Wi-Fi participates well because it's been storming over here. Hi, Gloria. Yeah. I'm in Western North Carolina, in case just outside of Asheville. And man, when it rains in the mountains, it's like, I don't know, things don't work as well. Nice to see you guys. Okay, well, I'm excited for today. We're going to talk about, so I have a little presentation prepared, but of course, like, feel free, guys, to interrupt me and ask questions as we go on. I have like a plan of like what I want to teach, but I'm sure you also might have some questions and we'll definitely have time for that. Ooh, Raleigh, yes. Oh, it stopped raining there? Okay, well, it's like, hasn't stopped over here, but it's all good. The land needs the rain. It's been pretty dry, so grateful for the rain. Yeah. Hi, Alexa. Welcome. Okay, we'll just kind of wait. Yeah, just a few more minutes. I am rarely on time. I'm so proud of myself. I was like actually a little earlier. Oh, you're working. Okay, Gloria, we'll stay quiet. That's perfect. So what time zone are you on, Gloria? Somewhere maybe on the West Coast. Hopefully you're not working at 7 p.m. at night on East Coast time. Okay, yeah, makes sense. Yeah, thanks for joining me, guys. We should have a fun time. I'm really excited to when I can talk about intuition and teach intuition all day long. So I'm excited to be here with all of you. All right. Well, we'll get started a little bit. I'm sure, if people have to jump in, good news is everybody is able to come in. I don't have to let people in. Okay, cool. All right, let's get started. Let me share my screen. Actually, oh, I didn't realize that we are having our session on like the first night of the eclipse season. So today is the full moon. Where are my astrologers? Like lunar full moon eclipse in Pisces. Am I right? I had a nice podcast recording last week with a friend of mine who's also been like a client, but she's an astrologer and she gave us like all the lowdown on the eclipse and it's going to run on my podcast on Thursday. But she was saying that I thought it was so interesting that I'm like teaching this course during these next 2 weeks, which is the eclipse season. She said that like it's a big emphasis on spirituality and that like in 2025, we're going to see people like move into like spirituality and intuition in like a very big way. And I was like, oh my God, how crazy. Like I didn't plan to have this series during that time, but she was saying that that was like a big theme to the eclipse and that what we're seeing in the eclipse is kind of like foreshadowing what comes in 2025. So I thought it was really cool. If you guys are interested, it's my episode with her will be running on Thursday. So yeah. So happy full moon and happy eclipse season. May it be kind to us. Okay, let me just no, that's not one I want to share. Okay, yeah, I got it. Let me just share my screen. All right. Okay, guys. Welcome, welcome to How to Receive Your Own Intuitive Messages. Um, with me, Nikki Novo. I'm sure, hopefully, I think I recognize pretty much everybody's names. So if you don't know me, hi, I'm Nikki Novo, and I am an accidental master intuitive. Never planned for this to be my life or my career or anything like that. But it is beautiful work. And I'm so grateful to have learned how to access my intuition, how to grow it, how to use it for other people. And now, of course, how to teach it. You may know me from my podcast, Soul Led Living, where I deliver uh, twice a week messages and read energy of different sorts and share those messages. And while I love delivering messages and seeing clients and doing the podcast, I'm super passionate about teaching intuition because I really believe that, and what I've learned from doing over 1,000 readings is that, intuition really is the voice of our soul. And that the reason that intuition is so important is because that is actually like that connection is what helps us connect to the soul and helps us like understand what we're really here for and what that path really is. Like it will guide you to your soul's path. So at first you might get into intuition for like work for other reasons. I personally got into intuition work because I never wanted to make a mistake again. I was like dumped by this guy out of nowhere and I was super confused because I really felt like God was calling me towards this person, or like I just felt like very divine about like meeting this person. And then when they broke up with me out of nowhere, I was super distraught and very confused about my intuition. So I don't know if you've ever had an experience where you like you almost like feel like you lose connection to your intuition. That's what I felt happened to me. I wouldn't even call it intuition. I thought that I was just like a person that would follow my heart, but it had never been like so wrong for me. And I was like so confused as to like what had just happened. And that is actually what started me on this journey to meet a bunch of psychics. And then from meeting all those psychics is kind of, and I'll share the story a little bit, but it's ultimately like how I became a psychic myself accidentally. So if you, oh, you know what? Actually, let me show you guys this really quick. This is very big. I wonder if I can make it smaller. Um, but yeah, well, first I just want to share like a few intentions that I have for tonight, and of course, feel free to set your own intentions. But I really, first of all, like want to leave you with a step-by-step process for connecting, because, like I said, I'm very passionate about teaching others how to connect to their own intuition. But I think sometimes it's like, what does that even mean? Am I doing it right? Am I making this up? So I'm going to share a little process that you can do. It's not like the one and only process, but I think it's like a kind of easy little process to get started on. So I will be sharing that with you, and hopefully you can leave with like some, steps. My prayer is that like you also perhaps during this time receive a message as to like why intuition is calling you, because it's no accident that this is happening, no accident that you're here. If you follow my work, you know that I love to like kind of like set the tone and kind of create a space for everybody to hear and feel their own intuition. So I wouldn't be surprised if like you kind of receive some sort of message as to like why you're actually here, why the divine is, why your higher self is calling you to learn more about your intuition. So maybe you'll get a message for that, and that would be amazing. And then, oops, I misspelled feeling. Sorry about that. Um, and may you leave feeling a little bit more confident about your intuitive connection so that you can really, live that life where like you're not doubting yourself, you know what steps to take and really start to live into your purpose and into your soul led life, as I like to call it. So, hoping that that is what we get done tonight. Yeah. Does that sound good? Can you guys tell me also what you came here for so I can keep that in mind as well so I can know like your intentions? That would be helpful. Okay. So, like you, I was probably like many of you here, I wasn't born with any sort of superpowers. This is like an old photo of me here. I don't know if you guys can see it when I was a fashion and beauty editor. I was like at an event and was working on the job, and they caught this photo of me. So I pulled that up from the archives. And I was, as many of you might know, I was born and raised Catholic. I went to Catholic school my entire life, all the way until I entered college. And in college, it was the first time that I was like kind of free. And I actually, one of the first classes I took, one of the first electives I took in college was world religions, because I was just so curious and I just kind of feeling that there was more, but I was raised like in a very strict Cuban, I was, I'm first generation in a Catholic house. So I couldn't really go outside of that. And anything intuitive or psychic was like a big no-no, even though my parents always like dropped hints that they felt intuitive themselves. My mom would call it ESP. I don't know if like any of your parents ever called it that. She would also talk about like some dreams that she would have. So she would have like some astrology books. So there was like little things, but like anything like going to a psychic or being intuitive or that talk was like a big no-no. And I just thought that all psychics were born that way. Like I just thought that they all had like these superpowers that either you're born with it or you're not. So it did never even cross my mind, you know? I was again a super happy fashion and beauty editor. Like I never thought that my work was going to change. Like this is the biggest surprise. Like if somebody would have told me, I don't know, 12 years ago, because I've been doing this for over 10 years now, that this was my path, I would be very like I would have said you were full of shit. So this is, a huge surprise for me. And honestly, I was like deathly afraid of psychics or anything supernatural. Actually, one of my first jobs out of college, I worked in LA and I worked at a film studio called Lionsgate. I studied public relations. So I worked in the PR department. And part of my job was like we would have to screen the movies that we were, promoting. And Lionsgate was a big like horror film studio at the time. And I was like, please don't make me sit through any of those horror films because I was so sensitive that I can't watch a scary movie. I can't watch a horror movie. And like that was my job. Like I had to sit through these like horror movies. And I was like, this is really bad for me. But again, I just thought that was just like my normal self. I didn't understand like kind of why I had those feelings and I didn't connect them to any sort of gifts, anything like that. So um, so yeah, I don't know if anybody resonates with that, like kind of maybe this surprises you that you're even here, because I definitely felt that way. Yeah, let's see what here everybody's here for. Reconnecting to my spiritual connection practice. I love it, Ashley. Um, Connect and learn to trust my intuition, Stephanie. Love to get little Nikki nuggets, Kaylin. I love it. Thank you so much. Thank you, Katie. Yeah. Okay. And I'm so grateful that you guys are here. I'm always happy to be here. Oh, we got another Catholic in the house. My mama is scared for my life. Yes, Shayla. I have funny, hilarious stories about my mom. We are like a complicated relationship, but we love each other and we're still very much like mother and daughter, but we've learned to kind of like work through this thing. I'm like the child that I don't know, like came out of the closet or something like that. That's the way she kind of treats me, but it's like really funny. When I used to live like walking distance from my mom when I lived in Miami. And as Cuban kids do, we lived in the same neighborhood. And sometimes I would like ask her to come over and watch my kids, let's say, because I had to run an errand or something. And she would come to my house and watch my kids. And I would come back and I didn't really notice anything. But like the next day, I would be like, man, where am I? Like, where's that deck of cards? Or like, where's that candle with the Palo Santo or like whatever? Like some of my little witchy tools and my at the time my kids were little so I had a nanny, I had some help and she would kind of mom is helpful but like I always had to have like the sitter as well. So the nanny would be like, I saw your mom steal your cards yesterday. So she would like come into my house and basically like secretly like take a deck of cards and then like put a statue of Jesus. So this was like this game that we played for a long time. So always like a fun time with her, but we have worked through it. And, I really see this work and intuition and spirituality as an extension of my faith. I don't find it as, I don't like necessarily subscribe to the hardcore religion anymore, but I would say that to me, intuition feels like my direct connection to God. Like I don't have to go to like other places or that I can directly connect. I also would say that I feel like it's a practice, like it's something physical I can do where sometimes for me growing up in church, I was just like, okay, we're here, we're listening, we're reading this, we're reading that. So I love intuition because it feels very tangible to me. And that it has only deepened my spirituality. So I don't know if anybody is on that same boat. Blanca, my mom did that with the Harry Potter books. Oh my God, that's so good. I was a little bit too old for Harry Potter, like so I missed that era, but that is like hilarious. I love that story. Okay, I know we have so many Latinas here I can see, and we are usually raised Catholic, so it sounds like we have a lot of, and we also have Jewish, Jewish faith people coming into the program and being here, so we have all sorts of different people coming from different walks of land. So, but what's funny, and I don't know if you guys felt this, but for me, there was still always these like signs. I just didn't know that it was like intuitive signs. So for me, I had a friend pass away in high school and I always felt his presence. I could feel like my great grandmother's presence. And of course, as I call them now, I start to feel all the goosebumps. But even as a kid, I could feel those things, but I just thought that was normal. I didn't question it. Also, like I feel like whenever I would learn anything about religion and they would mention like angels or these like moments, I was like, oh, I totally believe that. Like I really, really like felt in my bones that that was true. Like it never felt weird for me. I was always very sensitive, right? Like I don't know if you guys feel like, you walk into a room and you can feel the vibe or, maybe even just like feeling maybe your guardian angel around you or whatever. So there were these signs. I just didn't know that they like meant anything. Also, this is another sign like I always felt like I could understand animals and babies, even though they couldn't talk. Like I really felt like they were talking to me, if that makes sense. I was like Cinderella that would like talk to the animals, And that was definitely my vibes. And could sense energy, people's feelings, all that. So I don't know if anybody resonates with that. Yeah, like Gloria, I feel presence exactly. So there are these like weird signs that we are naturally intuitive. I just don't think, you're not really taught that as a kid. And now as a mom, it's amazing how intuitive they are. It's just that, if it's not encouraged, it gets turned off. So the other reason I love like setting my own intuition was really to be like a better parent to my kids and help them, kind of understand things that maybe they are feeling, but they don't really understand why they're feeling it. So that has been a big blessing too. So, oh, and then of course, the biggest sign is that I was so curious about anything metaphysical, like just even as a kid, things with wizards and like anything like that. And with time, I just really, really went down the rabbit hole. So I followed that curiosity in my 20s. And like I told you, I had that experience where I felt like I like lost my intuition a bit. And I ended up going to a psychic and I was very scared, but she did angel readings. And, I felt comfortable with angels because I was like, okay, they're like in the Bible. And she was so kind because well, she was super accurate, number one. And then after the reading, I was like, man, I wonder if I can do what she's doing. I have no idea why I asked that question. Again, I was like a fashion and beauty editor. I had never been exposed to any of this stuff. And she was so kind. And she's like, oh, yeah, no, you can totally learn how to do this. She had explained that she was born knowing that she was psychic. But she says that like she had heard of a lot of people learning to be psychic. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, I wonder if I can do that. So she gave me like a few book recommendations. And that was really like the beginning for me. And I I just thought it was fascinating, like how there's like I don't know how we're capable of so much more, and it actually felt very empowering for me. I honestly was like looking into intuition at first because I just never wanted to make a mistake again. I had been so heartbroken that I thought that like if I made my intuition like really really good, perhaps I could I don't know like win the lottery and like date the right person, I learned that that's not how intuition works, but that was kind of like what drew me into intuition. I don't know if anybody feels that way. Hi, Scotty. Um, and like that was really like the real reason I was studying at first, but then after a while, I just couldn't believe like how many other gifts we have inside of us and they were activating little by little. And I definitely started activating them through studying. I did some like certifications. I had some teachers it was like it was a journey, but um I will not bore you with that full journey. Sorry, let me share my screen again. And yeah, so fast forward to date, I have performed more than 1,000 readings, and I do a reading that I created myself. It's called the Soul Reading, and because I would sit in meditation and I would start to like kind of receive these downloads as to how to do readings, so I kind of taught myself based off some things that I was also learning. For example, like Reiki was like a big activation for me. I studied Reiki. I did the three parts and it really like opened me up and that's when I started to receive like these ways of doing readings on people. So did the soul reading method and then since then I have also taught over 1,500 people to activate their own intuition, which again is like where my passion lies because we can all do it. And I was a little hesitant. Like sure I taught myself to do it and I mean, I didn't feel special by any means. It took me a long time actually to even like recognize that I had a gift. because I had taught myself to like wake up these skills. And people around that time, people started to ask me if I could teach them. And I was a little hesitant. I was like, I don't know. I don't know if I can teach somebody else. Like, I don't know if I was like a fluke or something. But like about, I guess almost like 5 years ago now, I started to teach like people how I was teaching myself. And it was like amazing. I couldn't believe that people were going from nothing, like no intuition, to being able to like predict things. It was like the coolest experience for me. I started off teaching this course called Soul Teacher at the time, and I've turned it into something else now. It's called Soul Reading Method. But I could not, like, I was like, this is the coolest thing I had ever seen. Like when I started to teach people, and I was like, I really truly believe that you can give me anybody and I can teach them how to be intuitive. You have to want it, you have to like, because it does require work, but it's been fascinating, the coolest thing to see that everybody can do it. So we're going to learn some techniques today. But I wanted to share a little bit of my story because I know that I would imagine that so many of you have similar stories. So we're going to go over some 5 steps for receiving messages today. So the first one we're going to talk about is discovering your own intuition style. Because after teaching so many people, at first I thought everybody had the same gift. And then when I started teaching people in group, I was like, oh no, like different people receive their intuition in different ways. And like if you're expecting to receive your intuition one way, you're going to feel very disappointed when it doesn't come that way. So we first have to figure out what our style is. So we're going to talk about that. Then the next thing is, and I feel like people overlook this one so much, is you have to set an intention for what you are connecting to. So I don't know if you guys have listened to my podcast. Like I don't always share, but sometimes I'm like reading the energy of something. And I'm also either like using my higher self, or sometimes I might be like, I'm going to receive messages from angels today, or I'm going to receive messages for the ascended masters, or I'm going to read the energy of this. There has to be like an intention of what you're connecting to, because if not, you're just sitting there and being like, what's coming? Because there's so much different energy that we can connect to. There is, and that's, I think, why we get scared. At least I did. I remember like of psychics, because you can pull from dark energy, you can pull from light energy, you can pull from God, you can pull from all sorts of places. So like sometimes even when you're pulling like a deck of cards and you don't set an intention for like what you're connecting to, it could just like work out wrong, and it'll be very confusing. So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to go over practicing safely, because I I personally was scared to go towards the work. Like I remember sitting in I lived in a like basically a sorority house. It was like I was in my mid-20s, and I lived with 2 other female roommates, but it was this like big house, and it was like the party house, So there's always people in and out. And I would like sneak into my room while like everybody was partying, and I would like start reading my little like witchy books like by myself. And I remember reading this book. It was like an angel book. And it was saying something if you put a little note, I feel like if you put a little note underneath your pillow and ask your angel to answer you, it will give you like, it will visit you in the night, or like visit you in in your dreams or something. And I was like, holy crap. Like I do not want an angel like showing up in my bed at like 1 in the morning. Like that sounds very scary. And I was like, no, thank you. So I was like scared. And I still see that for so many people. I mean, and not to mention, I think a lot of us come to this work, not to get into it too much, but like with witch wounds. So like some of us have had lifetimes as witches, and we've been murdered for it, and now here we are like trying to do it again, and you're scared of, getting like there's just this feeling that it's scary and that you're going to get killed and all these kind of things. And that's a real fear. And I just think that if we don't get into move into the work with a lot of safety and like some protocols that make us feel safe, we're going to be like less likely to go in and feel comfortable, and then it won't work as well. So we do want to think about safety. Yeah. Does anybody feel a little scared about the work? Yes. Gloria, she says, that's what scares me, connecting to darkness. Definitely. There's all sorts of, yeah, Sada. Yeah, exactly. So like, and that's amazing that you guys are thinking about that because like a lot of people don't. And then that's when you get all sorts of weird energy and stuff. And it's also when you get wrong messages. So like it's kind of like you need to know, okay, is this a real Louis Vuitton or is this like a Chinatown Louis Vuitton? Because what you're connecting to, there's so much like trickster energy out there and things like that. So if you don't have like the right protocols, you'll be getting the wrong messages and it'll freak you out and all that kind of stuff. So it's not like nothing bad is going to happen to you, but we just want to keep it clean. So we're going to talk about that. Um, that yeah, that's why I've held back. Christina, that's why I've held back for so long. Exactly. Yes, I always get nervous and kind of scared. I always ask Archangel Michael to protect the cards from anything. Exactly, Katie. So we're going to talk about that. And I don't feel any fear anymore. I'm I hang out in the light so much that like I don't, but even as a practitioner, because I work with so many clients, I'm super vigilant about like cleaning my energy as well. I live in a lot of nature and I have to go out to the nature often because it clears me. So even with your protocols, you're also, minding your energy as well. And that's like a very important practice. So we'll talk about some of that as well. Okay, the next, after like kind of being like, okay, we're practicing safely, I feel safe to go in, you go in, and then once you start receiving, you have to have a place to express. Because what's interesting is that intuition like kind of comes into us, and we'll talk about like different ways that it comes. But the real like, um, what's the word? Like the final step is actually the expression. So it's like, how does it come out? Either it's being spoken or it's being written for the most part. So intuition, like if not, it just gets stuck in you. And that's why so many of us get confused because we don't have like a place to like put it out and express. Till this day, I still in all my readings and my podcast, I sit before the podcast or before the readings in meditation and I write down what I'm receiving first. Like that's the way that it like comes through. And then once I'm in the reading or I'm in the podcast is when I start to share. But the the message means nothing to me yet. Like I don't understand it when it's in my head. Like the time that I actually understand it is when it comes out on the paper or if I'm speaking it. So you have to have like a place to express that it's actually the throat chakra that does the final step for intuition. People always think it's like up here, like the third eye and all that, but it's really the expression. And then lastly, we want to not all like not always, but when we're first starting out, we want to have some sort of like step for receiving feedback or getting some sort of validation. And I'm going to show you a few ways that you can do that. So that you can, because the thing is, no, even me when I first started, it's not like I could trust all of my messages. Like, how would I know if they're even true? One of the reasons why my intuition is so strong is because I've been blessed to perform readings on people and they are giving me the validation and the feedback. So I'm like, oh, okay, like, yes, when I get it like that or when I feel this way, it's correct. And now there's just like a built-in knowing because I've received so much feedback and validation over the years that it's very easy for me to flow. But at first you're like, oh my gosh, am I making this up? So funny enough, like when you're starting your intuition process, I highly recommend feedback and validation, which I know kind of sounds like it defeats the purpose because we're supposed to like trust or know, but I have found that trust happens like from that practice. And you can definitely practice on other people, but you can also practice with just yourself. And I'll teach you kind of how you can do that. Okay. Yes. Okay. All right. So let's get into it. We're going to talk about the different intuition styles. Oops, did I miss something? Okay. My TV did a funny thing. Oh, Cindy. Hi, Cindy. Yes. Do you want to type in your question, Cindy? That's how I can see you and get the question. Go ahead and drop it in and I'll answer. Or I don't know if maybe you by accident raised your hand. Okay. So let's list out the different intuition styles. And maybe some of you guys already know them. Maybe I have a quiz of like, what is your intuition style? So that's helpful. It's not going to be like perfect, but it's helpful because often people have more than one intuition style. Like at this point, I have all four, but it's important for you to know which is like more of your strength right now. So we have feelers. So people that can feel. This is the biggest group. Actually, we've done like studies and surveys, and we found that most people are feelers. So basically, like I can feel this person being upset. I can feel the room. I am getting goosebumps. Like I feel the tightness in my chest. Those are our feelers. The only problem with feelers is that you sometimes don't know that it's actually intuition because you've lived your life just consuming other people's stuff that you think it's yours. So if you kind of exist on like a roller coaster of emotions and you're like, oh my gosh, like that's just who I am, you may just be a very strong feeler and you may be picking up things that are not your own. Um, for example, like I remember my teacher once I thought like this was such a good example. I don't have one of my own examples right now, but I had this teacher once tell me that she worked a lot with horses and she was, doing fine and hanging out with the horse. And all of a sudden she feels this like almost like a heartburn coming on. And she's like, that's so weird. Like, why am I getting heartburn? I haven't eaten anything. Like she didn't understand why she was getting this pain. And then all of a sudden the horse starts like moving or whatever. And like the vet comes in or something and the vet's like, oh, she's like having like some stomach issues or whatever, whatever. And she's like, oh my God, like I was just feeling because she was working with the horse and she was in the horse's energy and she was feeling the horse's stomach issues in her own body. But of course, if she wasn't like intuitive or, or kind of that wasn't in her mind, she would have never thought it was the horse. She would have just thought, I don't know, I'm having a little bit of a problem with my, with my stomach or my chest or something. So feelers sometimes, once you kind of maybe might think that you're the feeler, you might start to see your world a little bit different. And I think that when a feeler recognize their intuition, it's a game changer. It's life changing because you stop taking responsibility for other people's things, and you start to realize that like you are not the one going through all this stuff and that you're not crazy. It's just you're absorbing a lot. So I always try to teach my feelers to observe rather than absorb, because feelers also get through life. That's how they get their information. Like especially sometimes feelers grow up in a house, let's say that there isn't a lot of communication and you got to feel your way through relationships or you're hanging out with people that are not, let's say, emotionally expressive or mature enough to like share. So you're trying to feel them to be able to, to like get by. But it also is very draining to you. So ultimately, we learn to be like, you know what? I can still get the information by observing the energy and not feeling and like absorbing it into my body. Okay. Um, okay, Nisha, I see your question. Let me get to it in a second. Okay, any feelers here, guys? You think you're a feeler? Okay, our next one is a hearer. We got some feelers. Yeah, those are usually hearers. So hearers are that's actually like that was like actually my first gift that I could tell. Like I hear. So hearing is not like I don't know, like the voice of God coming through your ear. Hearing it to me is more like almost like a sentence is coming through. Like I received a word or like I received a sentence and I'm like, oh, okay. Like and also hearing could be another example is hearing is like, let's say you're hearing me talk, you're listening to me talk in real life. And I say five sentences, but out of those five sentences, there's this one sentence that just sticks out. It's like almost like in bold, or it feels like the volume went up. That's also the sign of a hearer. So it's not really like a sound per se, because it's more of a like a vibration that goes, but it comes from sound. So it could also come from like a song, right? And all of a sudden you're listening to a song and like these two words of the song like really stick out. That is also a hearer. And then sometimes it's just like the words are kind of coming through your ear and you're receiving like these words that there's nowhere other place that they're coming from, but you're hearing them. Any hearers in here? Yeah. Scotty's like, I can hear. Yes. Yes, Agi, we definitely can be all of them. The only thing is like when we're practicing and when we're learning, it is nice to be like, okay, I'm gonna go into this meditation or this practice by like really focusing on what I'm hearing. Because if you go in and you're like activating all the senses, but you're not like super strong in your intuition yet, that can be overwhelming. So it is nice to kind of like pick one when we're going in and to just start to notice how the intuition is coming to you. At this point, when I go in to receive information, the senses are all one. I don't know. I can't even tell you if I'm hearing, I'm seeing, it's all happening at the same time. And that's ultimately where we all get. But at first, it might be nice to be like, okay, I'm a hearer. So I'm not going to focus on seeing or visualizing. I'm not going to focus on like what I'm seeing. I'm really going to like feel into my ears and see what's coming through. So that's why it's nice to kind of separate them. Our next one is seer, which I always feel like seer is the ability to see. It's clairvoyance, right? The seers I always feel is like the it's like the gift everybody wants, they want to be able to see. I personally was very afraid to see. I actually like made a deal with my angels in the beginning. I was like, listen, I do not want to see you. Like, no, thank you. Like I said, don't come scare me, not interested. And I said, I'm happy to hear you. And I think, like I said, like feel you or something like that. Like those were the things that I was okay. Those were the boundaries I set in the beginning. So in the beginning, all I could do really was like feel and hear. I didn't know about the last one, which is knowing. um i I really was focusing more on the other ones, and then seeing, when I got more comfortable and I wasn't as scared, is when my seeing started to open up. Seeing is really seeing through the third eye. So it's very much the same muscle that we use when we're dreaming. It's also very much the muscle if like I told you right now, hey guys, like visualize the house, visualize your childhood bedroom, like see, remember like what the walls look like and the bed looked like. That part of your brain that you're using when I tell you to like visualize your childhood bedroom is seeing. So sometimes I think we think seeing is like, I'm gonna see like a ghost, which is what I thought. Like I'm gonna see like a physical being right now, but it's not. It's actually not as crisp as like some would like. So it's almost like more like a sonogram. It's like a dream, like you kind of see the dream, but none of like very rarely is a dream super, super clear and crisp. So that is really what a seer is. People that are visual, like, so if you kind of learn visually, if you um can see things visually, like almost like travel. Like if I told you like, oh my gosh, I went to Italy, and I start telling you a little bit about Italy, and like you're there, like you're like, oh no, no, I see it. Like I see the streets you were on, I see the countryside, you're a seer. So a lot of these gifts have a lot to do with even like the way we learn. So some of us that maybe are like listening to a lot of podcasts, things like that, we're hearers for the most part. So any seers there? And seers have dreams. Seers are just visual, like you can go. I like seeing, but I would say that seeing is Annalise, you're a seer. Yeah. I would say that seeing, even though it's cool, it takes an extra step to like kind of be able to like give the message. So like you have to see it, right? You're like, okay, I see an apple. But then you have to then translate what the apple means. So like seers can't just rely on like, oh, I see a unicorn. It's like, no, you have to be able to see, kind of like the same way if you were in an art gallery and you're looking at a painting, you have to kind of think like, what is the artist trying to tell you through the painting? So like, what does the apple mean, in the context of this question that I'm asking? So the seer always have to take like one more step, where sometimes like the knower, feelers also have to take another step, but like knowing and hearing sometimes is a little bit more straightforward. You don't have to translate as much. Okay, I see a lot of chats. I love it, guys. Erica, I think I'm a knower, and here I could totally see you as a knower. I'm going to talk about a knower right now. Um, Sarah, if I'm doing a meditation and see something in it that holds a message for me, is that considered being a seer? Yes, Sarah. You're just going to want to then take the extra step and translate the message. Okay, if this was trying to tell me something similar to a dream, okay, so I had this dream, this unicorn popped out of somewhere, and then a lion popped up, and my mom was there. Not all dreams are like meant to be like completely translated, but for a seer, you want to get good at that. And if you are a seer and you're seeing visuals and you feel like you're not good at the metaphors or the interpretation, which like my students always say, like, why are you so good with metaphors? I'm like, the funny thing is, guys, you do have to get good at metaphors to be able to be a good seer. You have to get good at like watching. It's like you basically like you watch like a Star Wars movie and you're like, oh, this is what they're trying to tell me in the Star Wars movie. Or like you read a fable and you're like understanding like the meaning behind like the story. There's always like a meaning behind it. And that's that the seer has to work that muscle. And I am like particularly good at that. And the reason I am is because my father is a huge like literary nerd. He's a doctor, but he was like super into films and literature, and I was raised to like interpret all these movies and stuff. Like every time I would watch a movie, my dad would like kind of tell me his interpretation, but then also ask me for my interpretation. So in a weird way, he was like training me since I was a kid. And then as I started to realize that I was a seer, I started training myself a little bit and I started to watch movies that were like that. And I would kind of force myself to be like, okay, what's the meaning behind this movie? And that's the gift. That's the skill that a seer needs to be able to translate. That's like actually how you get to the next level. A great show, a great series to watch if you like want to develop that is it's called it's a like an older series. I watched it with my daughter like many years ago. It's called Once Upon a Time. And it's all about like the Disney, it's all about like the fairy tale, like the fairy tale stories, but all those fairy tales have a meaning behind it. And you're basically watching and you look for the symbolism and you start to understand it so that when you're in meditation or even in your own dreams, you can that same muscle starts working. So that's a little tip. Yeah. Gloria, I do that with movies. Exactly. Great. So just anytime you're watching any sort of media, see if you can see like the meaning behind it. And unfortunately, what's funny is that you might want to be like, oh, I wonder what the writer was, trying to say with this like movie that they're doing. But a lot of those artists that are making those movies and all that, they are channeling and they don't know that they're channeling. So they don't know the meaning behind their own art, but it's almost like if the universe is trying to talk to us through that art. And that is like what we're trying to get good at when we are seers. Actually, let's do a little exercise for our seeing muscle. Give me 1 second so I can grab something. Okay. So as we like work on seeing or even just on all our intuition, there's a big emphasis again on like translating the messages, right? Interpreting. So let me see. Okay, I'm going to ask a question and you guys, I'm going to pull a card and we're going to use the visual of the card to kind of see what the card to us means. Now, now what's interesting about interpreting messages or visuals, all of us are going to have a different interpretation of the same visual because the um the message is coming to you. So like what an apple means to me may be very different to what an apple means to you. If I see an apple, I might be like, oh, she's meant to be a teacher. If you see an apple, you might be like, oh, she's meant to go move to this area that I know that has a bunch of apple farms in it or whatever. Because like you have to remember that the message, the visual is coming to you and you are the best translator of the message because it's a reflection. The visual is a reflection of something that you already know. So with the card, we're not going to look for like what what the card is trying to say, but more like what do I feel like I'm getting from this visual. Okay. So let me see. Let me ask a question. I am about to release and finish my audiobook for my latest book called Soul Led Living. And I am trying to, I just wonder if it's like, if the release is going to do well. I'm wondering like maybe how I can get it out more. I don't know. That's my question. Okay. So I'm going to pull a card. So anything about the audiobook. Okay. So I pulled this card and I'm going to cover what it says actually. Oh, you know what? Okay. So do you guys see? It's kind of blurry. Okay, so we got like an angel in the background. We got this guy. It looks like he's smiling. He looks like he's rich or something. The card is pink. So what are your first impressions, guys? Like if this card had a message for you about my question, what's your interpretation? Go ahead and drop it in the chat. And of course, I wish you could like see the details because sometimes you might find yourself like focusing on one little detail, like, oh, I'm really focusing on the flower. So I feel like this is going to bloom or something like that. I'm really, focusing on the angel. Gloria, you're having a hard time seeing it? Yeah. Maybe if I put it like in front of my face or something. Maybe that's better. Okay. It will succeed. You have lots of help from your angels. Thank you. Success after working hard. Pink love. Yep. Amazing, guys. Seems like Nikki is the man in the front and her audiobook is the angel. Seems so bright and bringing much joy. Maybe the angel is guiding you, this man. Yeah, I also was like, maybe there's somebody guiding me, like helping me through that process. Blanca, first impression, the audiobook should be released around fall and you should be the reader, the angel. Yeah, I love it. I am the reader, of course. And that's why it's been so hard. It's like not easy to record an audiobook, let me just tell you. So that like it's the same. So that gift that like little exercise that we just did by looking at a card is actually the same thing that we do when we receive visuals. You just sometimes we receive visuals and we take it like on face value and it's really not. It's the interpretation of the visual. Same thing with feeling. It's like, okay, I feel my heart is pounding, right? As I'm, whatever, receiving this message. That's not the answer. It's really like, what does a pounding heart mean to you? Like, if your pounding heart was trying to say something, what is it? Right? Yes, Gloria. So that's how it works. Why is it that I can't see all these messages you are reading out loud? Oh, Leslie, like you're not seeing the chat, Leslie? There's a lot in the chat. I could be jumping around. Okay. Okay. Great job, guys, with our first exercise. So those are my seers. And then the last one are knowers. And I love my knowers because knowers are people that like download messages that they just kind of drop into their head. But knowers are funny people because without knowing that they're intuitive, knowers tend to think that they are like judgmental people because they're like they just know shit, and they're like sometimes like somebody might walk into the room and be like that person actually maybe as a mother you've probably felt that before. My daughter was having a party at the house one day and this girl comes up to me. She was very nice to me, very very polite, very nice, but I just knew. I was like, that girl is bad news. Like, this is not a person. And like told my daughter, and she's like, oh my God, that's so funny you say that. Like a lot of people like have that opinion about her. And it was just something I knew, right? Like I just knew it. And I if it wasn't my daughter, I could be like, oh my God, I'm being so judgmental or whatever. But I just had this like sense that this is like not a good, just not a good person to hang out with. And there was nothing, it wasn't about how she dressed. It was nothing. So knowers have to actually get past feeling judgmental. They have to love themselves. They have to believe in themselves. They have to like have their own backs because they are receiving things and there's no reason for why they're receiving it. And that's what's like the hard thing about the knower. And the knower has to like really like trust in themselves. Yes, Gloria, Capricorn. um, and I'm definitely a knower, Kristen. I love it. Yeah. And knowers just like, again, they just know things sometimes. And that question of, so Maria is asking, how do you know if you're downloading information? So the best answer to that, guys, is at first, you can't, as we're learning like how to get better with our intuition, we can't just depend on being like, I'm out and about and I want to know if I can trust this thing that came through. It's like really, we want to like the reason I could do that thing with my daughter where that friend came in was because I've been practicing meditating on the mat, like intentionally. What is my intuition? What isn't? So that when I go out into the real world, I can tell the difference. So we're not going to start by like going out in the real world. We actually start like in the classroom on the mat with like nothing, like nothing else distracting us. And we're like learning how it works or not. So downloaders or knowers, some of you might just like, have a knowing as I'm saying this, but you'll know more as you practice outside of like the real world. And then you can take your skills as you're like getting better at it outside into the real world. You're receiving message information all the time. It's just going to be hard to decipher it at first. So that's why we want to like practice, um, on the way. Okay. Blanca, 100% so true. And I stop myself because I feel judgmental. It's not always a good feeling to sense people. Definitely. Yeah. You don't want to like be judgmental, but I would say that like the difference between like truly being judgmental is like, um, you have like some skin in the game. A lot of times the judgment is like, there's no reason for you to be judging, like with that girl, like I didn't like I didn't know her. It's not like I liked her or didn't like her. And even when I was getting the information, I really wasn't judging her. Like I just like had this information about her. So there is a little bit of like a separation from it. And also at the same time knowing that like she's not bad. I'm just saying I could feel the energy. We're not supposed to go in that direction, basically. Yeah. So that's kind of how you can get past your judgy self. Okay. Let me see. There was a Yeah, Carol, that's a great one. Is knowing when people like lie and if lies and like you can feel it or it. Definitely like knowers will tend to be like, "Oh, I know that person's like lying." That is something that I think a lot of us might be able to resonate with. So that's a form of knowing. And knowing is a little different than hearing, but it's similar where you like have information where the hearing kind of like comes through your ear. The knowing is like, yeah, I don't know why, but like from one minute to the next, I didn't have this information and now I have the information, but it also might feel a little bit like words. Like you got it, but I would say it kind of drops altogether more than comes like in a sentence, if that makes any sense. Okay. So once we know our type, we want to when we start to practice, we want to lean into that type a little bit. Like we want to be like, okay, I'm going to focus on my hearing or my knowing today, like as I'm practicing. But the next thing is we need to decide, we're going to set an intention as to who or what we're connecting to, right? So the card that we just did obviously was like harmless, like a lot of you just like kind of went in and you didn't think too much about it, and you're also doing it for me, so there's like not a lot of you're not super stressed about it. But of course when we're like trying to get our own messages for ourselves, it gets a little harder. It's a little wonkier, right? Because like you're invested and you're attached and all that kind of stuff. So the first thing is we have to set this intention as to what we're going to connect to. So that can be, and this is like totally, up to you. And um, there's no right or wrong, right? So like if you guys don't really have something in mind, you just connect to your higher self. Your higher self is the God within you, right? Like if we are just like all little expressions of God, that divine part of us is the higher self. And that is who we can count on. And it's probably going to feel, it's like a version of you that is divine. And you don't even have to like have a visual of it or whatever. You can just say like, I'm connecting to my higher self. And most of like your intuitive information will come from there. So that's a lot of like what I use. But when I first started, I would play around a lot and I'd be like, okay, I want to, because I come from a Catholic background, I was like, oh, I want to connect to Jesus, or, what am I getting from, or like, uh, I want to connect to my grandparents. Like, what is my grandmother saying about this? So, and even with a deck of cards, I find it to be helpful to go in and be like, I want to connect to my guardian angels with this. Sometimes decks of cards have like energy themselves. Like these are angel cards. So for the most part, we're like getting angel messages because that's like the energy of the card. But I can also use these cards to be like, Jesus, give me a sign, whatever, if that's what I want. So it's important to kind of decide what you want to connect to. And you can jump around. You can be like, I'm going to connect to my mom who passed away on this one. I'm, going to connect to my guardian angel on this one. And you don't have to like visually see them. It's just an intention. You can say, like, I'm connecting to God, to like the highest source. I always like to go like to the highest source, like bring, and we're going to talk about protection next, but like bring, God in, like work from the highest place. And then from God, I'll go down. So I'll be like, okay, I'm going to go down to my, higher self, or like I'm going to go down to this like and different people in my classes have, there's like a range of curiosities. So we have people that are interested in like ETs or like star seeds, like things like Pleiadians and that kind of stuff. So that's also something you can connect to. Some people are interested in like spirit animals. Some, I've had students that are interested in like flowers, gosh, what is the like maybe herbs is kind of what we could call it, but they receive messages from herbs because they're like herbalists sometimes. So that's cool. You can connect and get information from, I don't know if you've ever done like a plant medicine and you feel like the energy of the plant medicine. Some people do that, but we want to have like an intention around that. So anybody here know kind of what you might want to connect to? Bye, Erica. Um, your higher self, an angel, like anything that you think you might want to start connecting to or working with. And that will be helpful. That'll like kind of make you feel a little bit more. And what you're using to connect to them is your intuition. So that's where the intuition part comes in. Yeah. Spirit guides, higher self. Yep. Higher power. Christina, love it. Spirit guides. Yep. Perfect. Your spirit guides, Stephanie. Yeah. Angels. Okay. Yeah. And then, as time goes on, you might like play around with that. But yeah, I love it. For me, angels was my first, and then I moved into spirit guides because it's interesting. Obviously, we're all one. So it's like funny that we break these connections down and we're like, oh, angel, spirit guide, but it's all one at the end of the day, right? But I couldn't even like wrap my mind around when I was first learning that like there was a higher power version of me. Like I could not like really get that. So I enjoyed having like I felt like I had this like spirit guide that was kind of like assigned to me and I could communicate with the guide. And that's like what felt. Now I don't really work with guides because I go like straight. I'm so in touch with like who I am from my higher self for it because of this work that I've been doing. I've been like working with souls for so long that like I just kind of got to know my soul so well that I can do it from there. But at first I really needed like the help. I needed the different connections. So that was why it was helpful for me to start off with. Alina, I heard your Archangel episode and honestly, I'm very intrigued and interested in working and connecting with them. Exactly. Yeah. That's a great one too, because they also have like different powers and stuff. So you get like a different vibe and energy. It's fun. So definitely choosing, guys. So that's what we want to start off with. The next, we want to think about safe practices. So if some of you I know have been in soul reading method with me, and I know some of you are joining, so I'm excited to have you. I teach like a certain way how to do protection in soul reading method, but there's many different ways, and it really just it's whatever like to me, it's like it doesn't really matter how you set protection. It just matters that you set it, right? So, and some of you are going to come from different places. So I'll show you, and my protection has come from like being like this super long process to being a very simple process. And also, the more you just like stay in that vibration, the less protection you have to have. But in the beginning, I was like working at a fashion and beauty, at a magazine, and I was working in downtown and I was getting all sorts of energy. Now I like my energy is a little bit more protected. So I live a little differently than I did when I first started. But it's whatever's your protocol and your ritual is great. There has to be one. So for me, I personally start off with, and if any of you are in my Substack membership, in the meditations, I always start off with like a little protection. That's a great way to start as well. So I like to just go into my heart. Like I like to, so you guys can practice with me. We'll just like go into the heart, and this is like the green chakra. And I like to see that green chakra just open up like beyond me. It's kind of so I make like a little energetic bubble from the green heart center. So I'm like, okay, I'm like in love. I'm connected to love, which is the strongest vibration. And then I imagine my feet like reaching all the way into the earth. So just kind of like extending my energy into the earth and being connected. And then I feel my energy go up. So I feel like all the way up to like the light. And I'm connected on both sides. So it's like my top and my bottom are connected. And then I go back into the heart. And then I'm like, okay, like that's just like me plugging in basically. And then I might call like Archangel Michael, like please protect me. Or just even saying like, okay, I'm in this like energetic space. I'm only available for the light. May this support like my highest and greatest good and the person's highest and greatest good, like whoever I'm working with. And just like really feeling like that love energy. And that's good. Like I'm plugged in and I'm like claiming that like this is only about love, and that's like what's the only thing that's allowed here. You guys might make yours like different or more intense, however you want to do it, and that's cool. Oh, and another thing I like to do is I pray for, you might have seen this if you've ever watched like one of my Monday readings, but I'll pray for myself because I'm trying to be a clear vessel, especially when you're trying to get messages for yourself. It's so hard to get in our own way. So I'll say like, please allow me to be a clear vessel for these divine messages. And like, may I receive whatever it is that I'm meant to receive. So I really just like let attachment go of like what is coming through. And I really pray to be like a clear vessel. Like I don't want to get in the way. I want to like be my divine self during this time. And then that's it. So I like set my little intentions and then I go in. Does that make sense, guys? Oh, Carly, sorry, you have to go. I know, guys, I'm going over. I'm so sorry about that. There will be a replay, so you can catch the rest. We'll definitely send the replay. Yeah. Okay. So that's our little, and like, so just kind of decide what that is, and it doesn't have to be elaborate. It could be 5 seconds, you know? And then just know that when you're doing these practices, you're just going to become more mindful of your energy. Like you're going to be more mindful of like when you feel a little stuck, when you feel a little gross, and then you also want to have some like practices to clear your energy as well. So that could be like a meditation, that could be going out into nature. But you'll find that you become a little bit more attuned to your like energetic hygiene. Okay. So then, sorry, I'm trying to move through it fast. I guess I was like very ambitious with this class. Okay. So then the next thing is we have to express the message. So okay, we go into our, reading, right? Like into getting our messages. So we're like, okay, I'm going to connect to my higher self. I'm going to do like my little protection. I'm going to present the question. So maybe it's like, where am I supposed to move? Or, what am I like, how can I make more money in my business, whatever. So you present that question to what you're connecting to, but you need a place for it to come out. So I personally, still to this day, enjoy the writing. So it's like kind of like a channel writing, but some people also are good at just voice notes. So the other thing you can do is get your phone out and just hit the voice memo and let yourself like, receive the message and drop it into the voice memo so that it's expressed. So it has to be expressed. And what we want to do here is I have my notebook, is you're going to ask that question. You're going to let it drop in whatever way, like maybe you hear it, maybe you see it, maybe you feel it. You can play with it too. Every time you go in, you can be like, okay, today I'm going to focus on seeing. And I'm going to see if I'm seeing anything when I ask this question. Tomorrow I'm going to work on hearing. So you can play with the different skills. But what I want you to do is like, I don't so the information's coming to you, like the energy, you're like receiving it, it's coming through, you're picking it up. And I want you to do your best to not overthink it. Like, don't kill it before it comes in. Cause a lot of us, like, the information comes through. And then right here in the head, it starts going like, oh, but that's so weird. Why am I seeing a unicorn? Or like, that doesn't mean anything to me. That's not possible. And that doubt and like that very normal thing that our brain does, which is like it's trying to analyze and like kind of break apart what's happening, is going to kill the message. So what we're trying to do with the expression is we're trying to like let it come through and then drop it on the paper as quickly as possible so that we're not interfering with like what is trying to come through. Once it's on the paper, if you want to judge it and like psychoanalyze it, that's cool. But like what we want to do is like bring it from the source down into the paper. Does that make sense, guys? So a lot of you guys did it when I showed you the card. Like you didn't really doubt it, question it, you expressed it. You wrote it right away. Didn't think too much about it. You were just more in a curious place because we definitely don't want to connect by looking for being right or wrong. We want to go in feeling curious. Like we want to be like, okay, I'm just curious to see, what the answer is. Not so much that like oh my God, Nikki's life depends on me giving her this message, right? So, and sometimes we do that to ourselves. So we really just like, oh, just curious to see, like, show me, like, I'm not attached. Like, show me where I'm supposed to move. Like, I'm just curious to see, like, what's coming through. And to know that I'm not really looking for this, like, definite, amazing answer. I'm just like, like, I'm letting this information come through. Okay. Um, is the question supposed to be out loud? Alina, like I just ask the questions in my head. You can write it out too if you want to. You can say it out loud. That doesn't really matter. It's just like kind of holding that intention of the question. Okay? Yeah. Okay. So and then we're just kind of so that is like just know that that's like where questions that's where messages get killed the most. They get killed right here. In the thinking part. So, like, try not to kill your message. Sarah, when I'm doing meditations, it's all visual and I can interpret the message in a moment. Awesome. But I would say I'm a knower, and that's what came up in the quiz as well. But I know this form experiences that have happened over the last year, not from meditate. Wait, sorry. But I know this from experiences that have happened over the last year, not from meditations or intentional practices. What does it feel like to receive a message through meditations as a knower? So, in meditation as a knower, it's going to be like when I'm speaking it or when I'm writing it, you like write what's coming through and you're like, "Oh, I didn't even know I knew that." Like I didn't even know that was there. That's what it's going to kind of feel like. So, you're going to be like, "Oh my gosh, like I just said this thing like, whoa, I didn't even know like I had that information." So that's really what a knower tends to feel like when they're finally expressing it. Okay. A feeler may feel something when they're going into the meditation and or, into that kind of like intentional connection. The feeler needs to take the feeling out of the body. So I like to kind of be like, oh my gosh, I have this chest pain. I have this chest pain. Okay. Let's imagine the chest pain going out on a screen in front of me, like, like seeing it on my computer. And now I'm observing it outside of me. And then I have to interpret it. So what I'm writing down is the interpretation. Okay, this is kind of what I feel like it's trying to tell me. Scotty, if we can see, hear, and know, how do we know how one is our strongest gift and focus there? I don't think I think for now, guys, I would recommend that you play with one at a time. Like just kind of like, oh, today I'm going to do a little meditation on hearing. Then I'm going to do it on knowing. Like I would split them for now, but ultimately, then just do one where you just like let whatever happen, and you'll see that they mix in at some point. So we're not really looking for necessarily the strongest. We're looking for like kind of how we feel like we're, getting it the best. It's kind of like saying, I curl my hair, but I can actually curl my hair three different ways. I can do it with a blow dryer, I can use a wand, or I can use a curling iron. And I get the job done, but like I just happen to enjoy the curling iron better. And it does look a little bit better, but like the way I use it, it just feels a little bit more natural. So you will all, but they're all good. Like I can do all three and my hair still looks good, but I might be like kind of pulled towards one. So, so it's not necessarily that one's going to be better. It's more that you might just find that like you're more in tune. It's like being a painter and there's like this one brush that you really like. And that may be helpful. So for me, for a long time, it was visual, but now I'm just like super like knowing, hearing. That's like it for me. It's like kind of what I love to use. It's the quickest. I'm just like, it's like my brush of choice right now. But I would go through stages where like my brush of choice was seeing. Okay. You have the best way to explain. Yeah. But that's the metaphor stuff. It's really weird. It's like what my childhood training of. Okay. So you got that, guys? Those were our steps. Oh, and then I'm sorry. The last step is the feedback step. So this kind of sounds funny, and I didn't think this was this important at first because I was like practicing on my own when I first started. And funny thing happened at the time, I was my husband's secretary at his tree business. I had left my fashion and beauty editor job and I was trying to grow my spiritual business. But like, obviously I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I didn't even know I could do readings at the time. So I asked my husband if I could work for him, and he like let me. And that was a really fun experience, crazy experience. But in the meantime, I was like working on this business. And funny enough, I had to hire an assistant for my husband. And I ended up hiring this like friend, this person that I knew not super well, but I like was like an acquaintance. And she comes in, we start working together. After a few months, we get to know each other. And she says something about like Archangel Michael. And I was like, oh my God, that's like code. Like she must be like into the stuff that I'm into. And once we started to discover that like we were both into that stuff, she started to let me practice like my intuition on her. And that changed everything for me. Like to have somebody to like give me feedback and to tell me, oh yeah, no, I was like, oh, like this is when I realized that like I needed the validation and the feedback. So actually, till this day, I always teach intuition for the most part in group. Like I don't really do it one on one. It's like not, I don't find it as effective because the group helps, we all read the same thing. And then we all start to pick up similar messages like you guys just did right now, right? So, you were all, there was very similar messages, the ones that you guys were sharing. It's everybody's going to have a little different perspective because you're looking at a spear from like different angles. So everybody can have a little bit of a perspective. It's like the messages will be some of them even quite different because depending on where you're entering through, but you're still reading the same thing. And you start to get that confidence from that. Now, if you're practicing by yourself, you're not doing it in a group, you actually, that's why the cards are helpful. Or even like, anything like visual is helpful. It doesn't have to be a card. You can whatever pick from drawings or something. But what you can do is like you download your information, you get it, you write it out, fine, okay, cool, this is what I understand. And then you pull a card and then see if that card is kind of like telling you something similar or is it like completely off path. And as you're like, man, there to me, I started getting to this point that I could predict what card I was gonna get because I like got the information, I knew it was, and I knew what card I was going to get, and I would get the cards. So, ultimately, like, so the cards are helpful way to validate after you receive what you receive. I wouldn't use the card first. I would use it after if you like have nobody to practice with. But then if you have people to practice with, I would definitely like be like, can I answer like an intuitive answer for you? And then play on them. And if you're doing well there, you can trust that you're doing well for yourself. So that's where like the game starts. It's really like a game and it should be fun. Um, Christina, what kind of cards would you go with? Man, I love these. These are actually like a tarot deck, but they're angels and they're just I just any card that you connect with, honestly. I have this one and there's like another deck of card that I really connect to. I have a bunch of cards, but I don't use cards much anymore, but I like there's just some that like really draw me in. So I would say anything that's like, you go to the store, any visual that like really calls you in is totally fine. Yeah. Okay. So those are our steps, guys. Okay. So it's like kind of have an idea of what your, like what your style is so that you can use it when you go in. And of course, with time, all those styles are going to merge. So, but in the beginning, you might want to, start off with one. What are you connecting to? Like, okay, set that intention. And in soul reading method, we even like go beyond. There's like, obviously, this is very as basic as I can give. There's definitely so much more. But in soul reading method, for example, we also set the intention of what energy we're going to read. So if you've heard me in the podcast, I'm like the energy of self-worth. And I actually like hold my focus and I start to read. So like bring in self-worth. Like that's kind of like what I'm connecting to. And that's where I'm getting the information from. So that's like 102. You can get to that like eventually, but you're like intuition is like you are reading energy that exists, but that is like not physical that you can't see. And you're as we get intentional about what energy we're reading, that's how the messages get accurate, if that makes sense. Okay. So knowing what I'm connecting to, um, practicing like safely, right? And then I feel like I'm missing one. And then validation. I'm definitely missing something. Forgot my steps now. Oh, we have to express a message. Okay. Before yeah. So your style, what you're connecting to, your safety practice, a way to express, like, okay, I'm getting the message, I'm expressing it. and then seeing if I can, validate it or get a little bit of feedback. And through that practice, eventually it becomes second nature and you won't have to do the steps as much other than the protection. But it will become second nature. But I do recommend like doing it on a mat, like in a little space, and then ultimately you start bringing it out into the world, which is really cool. So yeah, that is what I got. But like I said, there's so much more. And if you guys are curious, I would like love to be able to teach you more. And probably, I know a lot of you have already been in the program, but if you feel like I would love to learn more, I think Nikki can help me. Like if you would want my help with that, I would love to introduce you to Soul Reading. Soul Reading Method, for some of you who don't know, it is a 6-week certification program that is designed to help activate those intuitive gifts. We go through all of it. We learn how to read energy. We learn how to connect to guides. We go into the Akashic records, which is just another place we can pull information, but you have to like grow your intuition to be able to get there. We learn about predictions, premonitions, timelines, which is super fun. I was always scared of like predicting things, but there's actually like ways to predict that you can feel like safe with your predictions. And I'm pretty accurate with predictions. You can never be 100% because things are always shifting. But you can actually like get good at it. And there's like these amazing stories from my class, like that have predicted things like when we're doing it together. So it's a ton of fun. So that's what we go over. We do that in 6 weeks. I teach live every 6 weeks, but there's a bunch of like meditations, videos, worksheets, things that you learn from. And yeah, so here, how to read energy, energetic protection and practices. We work on finding your soul's path and purpose because that's something you can read in the Akashic records. So we learn to do that, how to connect to different spirit guides, future predictions, timelines, and the Akashic records. So it's a super amazing program. This is like very long, but how it works, like you sign up, everything is on Teachable. That's where all like the videos are, the meditations, all that kind of stuff. And then we get together once a week for live class, and then also twice a week there are practice circles. So I'm very big on practice. Like intuition is a physical practice. It's something that we have to do. It's not like we consume the information. We have to practice it. So in Soul Reading Method, it's all practice. Like you come to meet me live, we practice together, and I'm giving feedback like that might be a little off. Yes, that's correct. Things like that. And then you also practice in your practice groups with a teacher, somebody who has one of my students that has studied under me, a graduate who's, doing this work full time. You get video modules, PDFs, guided meditations, the practice circle, Slack community. So like access to the class and to the teachers. And then certification. Some of you like will want the certification and some of you will just do it because you want to do it for yourself and for your family. And that's like literally what I got into it for. It took me down this funny path. But I think it's the most beautiful gift to give yourself and give your family. And to me, this is like how you manifest everything is like understanding that intuition. So this is the price. I would love to have you. You can join by going to nikkinovo.com/SRM. And for those of you who are here today, I have a coupon for $79 off. You just have to use the word soul when you check out. Gloria, yes, classes are Eastern time. That's a good question. We have 3 different times throughout the week. Because we have people from all over the world, so we're trying to help people. There's like there's a late 9 class, there's like a late class, there's a morning class, and there's like a middle of the day class throughout the weeks. It's on this. If you go to this website here, it'll give you the schedule. But yeah, Ashley, the practice circles are magical. I know, and the people you meet, I know, Ashley. We will. So if you guys come to the other classes these weeks in the workshops, we're gonna have a lot of students show up that have gone through the program, and you'll get to hear from them because like their experiences are truly magical. It's like it has to work in group. It's like the only way to do it. Oh my gosh, my kids are like, it's 18 minutes past the time you told me you were gonna teach. So yeah, I'll keep this up here, but let me go ahead and answer some questions. So I'm curious, I would love to sign up, but the time of the year is tricky for me. Will you be running class? Yeah, Liz, we run Soul Reading Method. It's just sometimes it changes, and like as I get busier and stuff, like that's always a I mean, I think I'll always be teaching soul reading method, but sometimes things might change. But I teach about twice a year. So sometime probably like next spring or something like that is when I'll teach again. Yeah. Yeah, I did do it. I did it last year and I actually did it twice this year already. So yeah, Sarah, could you repeat one more time the difference between seeing and knowing? Yes. So seeing is I'm closing my eyes, I'm in meditation. Let me turn that off. I'm closing my eyes, I'm in meditation, I've asked a question, and all of a sudden I'm like receiving a grassy area. Okay, so like I have to interpret like what does that grassy area mean? And I have to be like, okay, a grassy area it feels very peaceful. It looks like everything's gonna work out. Like it looks like it's blank. Looks like there's a lot of space for something to grow. It gives me space. That's my interpretation of this like grassy area, let's say. Now, let's say I'm not focusing on visual, I'm not receiving a visual. I'm sitting in meditation, I'm asking about um, you know, I'm worried about my job. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm sitting there. And then I'm like, okay, like I'm not getting anything, but I'm just going to write. I'm going to write like what I got. And it's like, oh my God, or I'm going to speak what I got. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I just know it's going to be okay. Like, I'm just like receiving this like confirmation somehow. It's just in me now. I just know. I know it's going to be okay. And it kind of feels like I just know. It's like almost like you want to say that. So that would be the difference. Christina, do you have recommendations for how to tell the difference between intuition and anxiety? Definitely. So I think the first like the first thing is anxiety is an energy. So the cool thing is like the more you learn to read energy, the more you'll understand, like you'll be able to sense because in a weird way, anxiety is like when it comes to intuition, it's like a filter. So imagine like I'm seeing the world with my eyes, but then I put a pair of glasses on that are blue. And then now all of a sudden I still see the same reality, but I'm seeing it blue instead. So anxiety is like that in many ways. It's sometimes like you're seeing out into like, the world, but you're just seeing it blue. So it's just a little different color. Because anxiety also, people that are anxious are actually quite sensitive and quite intuitive, but you're getting the information at a lower vibration. So let's say I'm saying like, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. I don't think I'm going to be able, I'm an entrepreneur and I'm scared that I'm not going to be able to pay my rent next month. So like, let me sit down and connect to my spirit guides and see like what they say. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm getting this message that like, it's like, I'm absolutely not going to be able to pay rent in May or something. So that's a very scary message. It could be like riddled with anxiety, but there could be some truth to the message. But the anxiety message, if you think about a scale from 0 to 10 vibrationally, anxiety will be like, let's say, like at a 3. And that's like a version of the truth. But what we want to do is like, okay, like what's the highest truth here? So the highest truth would be like, okay, yeah, it looks a little scary. Looks like I might not be able to make it. So I have to like from now start like working on a few things to be able to make it or to plan for that. Maybe I have to call my landlord and explain that like I need another 2 weeks. So yeah, there's some truth to like it doesn't look like it's gonna work. But if I raise that, I'm getting clearer messages without the anxiety, and I'm almost starting to get guidance from the guides rather than just only focusing on like the scariest part of it. So it's still the same message, it just has a range. So we're trying to like bring the message up, if that makes sense. So don't like throw away your anxiety, just ask your anxiety like what is the truth? Um like what there's almost like a message within the anxiety and like what is the truth here could be part of it too. So like don't necessarily think that there's something like wrong with you. It's like a type of sensitivity. It's just that we're not we're like dropping to the lowest explanation, the lowest vibration of a deeper message. Okay? Yes. Gloria had a book a reading with me. I have a wait list. You can just go to I can drop it here. I think it's like on my about page is where it is. But I open my calendar every few months or so. Um, yeah, so if you go to nikkinovo.com up here, I'll drop it here about. there's a little thing that says get on the wait list, and that's how. And then we send out an email to that wait list at like about once a month. Yeah. I feel like I missed a question, guys, like earlier that I said I was going to get back to. So can you guys drop that? Okay, Sarah, got so I was thinking about guided meditations where the guide is telling you what to visualize. Yeah, so a lot of guided meditations, you're being asked to visualize. And if you can't visualize it, like it's okay to kind of turn off the visual and just like let yourself, receive what you're receiving. And typically, even if you're visualizing and you're seeing something, but it's not really, there's not a message in the visual, then you want to like start to then you want to turn on your other senses. So, like, let's say you're in the visualization, you'll be like, okay, like I'm here, sure, like I don't really get it. I'm going to kind of turn off my visual a little bit and like focus on like, is anything dropping into my head? Am I like thinking, is there anything that like I'm thinking that's kind of like, coming out of nowhere? Is there anything I'm kind of hearing? Is there anything I'm kind of feeling? So you can like almost, like imagine if I told you to walk through your room and like close your eyes, your hearing is going to really turn on. You're going to hear it more. So you can when you're doing a guided meditation that's visual, you can isolate your senses to see and to like see where you're getting the message from or like where it's working the best for you. Okay. Nisha. Oh, thank you, Nisha. The path. I didn't know mine was very clear, and I was wondering if I'm just being impatient. What about Nisha? Do you mean like what path you're on, or like a path that you're reading? Yeah. Agi, what style is caution or warning thoughts? Do you mean spiritual path or work? Are you meaning, Nisha, like your spiritual path, your work is like not coming forward? Like you don't know what it is? Like it's not coming like fully forward? Oh, um, I don't know. I would have to like go into the records to get that. I'm like not in that zone today, but you can, um, with like those kind of paths, you can like go into meditation, like draw the path. So almost like see yourself going down the path and then asking the guides to like show you different visuals on the path to like receive your messages there. But yeah, I mean, there's always a ton of patience on these like spiritual paths and like, trying to find like allowing ourselves to ground. I think one thing about intuitives and people that are intuitive and psychic and this can happen is that often we can kind of float into the future and get the information from the future and we almost like get stuck there and we don't know how to like come back into the present. So if we don't come it back into the present, we're going to kind of not take as much action and we're always like kind of waiting for the future and in a way the future never comes because we have like kind of left the body to hang out in the future. So with especially predictions, things like, anything future self like going into the future, you want to like intentionally be like, okay, I'm going to go into the future. What does 2025 look like for me? What does next month look like for me? But then I'm going to come back and I'm going to ground that information. And then I'm going to ask myself, okay, like in order to get to that path that I see in my future, that premonition that I'm getting, like, how do I embody that today? What am I meant to do today that helps me get there into the future? In soul reading method, we do the future self meditation and the future self, we like go into the future to get information from there. But when we're in the future, we want to really notice why is our future self or this premonition like, how is it that I'm different in that time than I am now? And how can I bring my future self to the present moment? And that's how I collapse the time. So if I don't come back and don't work on collapsing the time, the future will always feel like it's in front of me and it never really comes to this like physical moment, if that makes sense. So that's something like psychics, yeah, like we just need to know that because we'll like float out into the future and then not necessarily like ground and come back. And then that messes with our timelines. So yeah. Shayla, what type of meditations are in your Substack? I do all visualizations. I don't, the Akashic records, Shayla, I teach in soul reading method because you have to like gain like the strength to get into the Akashic record. So I don't do them in Substack because I'm not teaching necessarily, but we do a lot of like guided meditations to receive your own messages. It's great like beginner's practice for sure. Those guided meditations. Yeah. Sarah, on the site to sign up, and it looks like there's tax. I don't ever see taxes on courses. Sarah, are you in another country? There's like I'm not taxing. It's the Teachable that taxes, and it taxes you depending on where you're at. So that's like something that we don't have control of. It's very annoying, but it's like depending on where you live, it could even depend on your state. So yes, I know. It's a thing that we fight all the time. But if you have any technical questions, Sarah, you can email Kat at nikkinovo.com. I'll put it here, guys. And she like knows like so much about the taxes and stuff because we do deal with that. It's not fun, but okay. Yeah. Yeah. All right, guys. I hope that was helpful. It was so nice to be here with you. I'm so excited. Oh, did I? No, no. You okay. Carol, so now do you connect only to the higher source? Carol, no, I play around. I don't only connect to my higher self. I'll play. I'll be like just whatever I'm like curious, like there's so many different things. The council, I'll connect to my inner child, I'll connect to like my mother's who's passed, but like for my own messages, for my clients, for like in my own practice, I like bounce around, but my clients, the podcast, it's always my higher self. That's just what I use for my work. But then for my own practice, I like to jump around. So yeah. All right, guys, it was a pleasure. I love being here with you. Thank you so much. Oh, Stephanie, the difference, what receive the intuition, what can you get? Oh, yeah. That's a great question, Stephanie. So she's asking like, what's the difference I can get from like just regular practice and the Akashic records? So the Akashic records is like, there's a lot of different information there. And there is like information from the past, present, and future. That's hard to understand. But specifically, I personally like the Akashic records for your soul. So I go in there to look for like the information of my clients' souls. And I can see like you can see their past self, you can see like other lifetimes, all that stuff. It's like a little, it's like it's supposed to be like an energetic library for everything that has to do with your soul. So I find Akashic records the best for like soul information. And it also, I have a lot of students that like enjoy the records so much that they go into the records and they receive all their information from there. Like beyond soul stuff, they just like the energy and like the power of the records. It's a little like the vibration's like a little different. Some people then I have some students that don't like the records and you can actually like what is in the records, which is a bunch of books, there's a just a ton of like information. You can also get it outside of the records, but you almost like it's almost like you I don't know how to explain it, but it's like you need to like request the book to come out of the records and then come to you because some people, not everybody loves the records, but there's a lot of information there specifically about souls. Yeah. This is very crazy, but super fun. Yeah. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. And I hope to see you the rest of the week. We will be teaching. I'm teaching also on Saturday. I'm teaching with some of my former students about connecting to past loved ones, which definitely shows up for me in my readings. It's not my expertise, just because I like to get information from other places, but I think it's an important practice for ourselves and to connect with like our loved ones and our ancestors and all that. So hope to see you this week in the other classes and watching the replay. Thank you for all your questions and for being with me. I'm sending you so much love and I'm looking forward to those of you who are joining me in Soul Reading Method. All right. Bye. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, Sarah, you signed up. Yay. Bye.